Okay, we are now going to call this meeting to order. This is the Clark County School District Finance Corporation meeting. Brian, do we need to read out the paragraph on this agenda?
The one that was put in the paper for the notice?
Yes.
No, ma'am. All you have to,
Okay.
that was published. All you have to do is there's, at the bottom of that notice, there are 4 items. It's a call to order, and then there are 2 action items, and then there is a motion to adjourn.
Okay, so we just need to confirm officers at this point?
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you.
This is Lincoln with RSA. So the officers can be typically your board chair is also the president of the finance corporation. It doesn't have to be that way. Typically, Alicia would be the treasurer, and Mr. Christie the secretary.
Okay.
I mean, that said, it could be it could be anybody could serve any position. That's just.
Okay, so how do you all want to do this?
I file our annual report with the state as the chairman being the president, Mr. Christie being secretary, and myself being treasurer. So I would prefer it to stay in that manner if that is.
Okay, is that okay with everybody, or would you all prefer to change anything? What's the board's discretion?
I'm okay with that.
I'm okay with that as well.
Okay,
Probably just a motion.
okay. Bill, Brenda, would anybody like to make a motion?
I make a motion.
Thank you, Miss Brenda.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Motion by Brenda, second by Mr. Talby. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0, I believe. Is Sherry on here? I can't see her, if she is.
I don't see her on there, so it would
Okay.
be 4-0.
Motion carries 4-0. Okay. Item number 3, consider a resolution to refinance Series 212 bond, 2012 bonds. Lincoln.
Yeah, so I'm very excited to be able to bring you guys a little bit of good news tonight. We've been monitoring your Series 2012 bonds for the ability to refinance, and I may be a couple weeks early to the game, but we're projecting that in the next couple months, there's a very good chance that we're going to be able to lock in savings that would be net to your building fund of greater than $500,000. That's approximately $45,000 per year over the next 11, 12 years. There's several thresholds that KDE, several metrics that they want to see met before they'll approve moving forward with the refinancing. And right now with the current market interest rates, we are right on that borderline. Assuming rates today hold, as quickly as we can move it through KDE for approval, we would be able to lock in those savings. Kind of a worst case scenario, if you guys choose to move forward and approve this tonight, if you turn the TV on tomorrow and rates really skyrocket considerable, there would be no expense to your district. And kind of the worst case would be by approving this, it just authorizes me to sort of set beside the trigger and be ready to lock in the savings when rates do settle back down. But again, based on today's rate, we would be able to save approximately $500,000 or a little bit greater. Currently, you're paying 3.95% interest on that Series 2012 bond. We project we'll be able to refinance that at a rate of 1.75%. Any questions?
Hey, Lincoln, this is Bill Talby. Are we, if we do this, are we extending the term at all by refinancing?
That is a very good question. So the principal and interest payment on the new bond will not only not be extended, they'll be the exact same month for each interest payment as your current payments. So basically, we just wipe away the old and replace them with these new bonds.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
Any more questions, comments, discussion?
I'll make a motion to adopt the, go ahead.
Well, I was going to go just a little bit into the weeds if I had about 2 minutes. So
Go ahead.
the Series 2012 bonds, in the past I've spoken of a redemption provision that's sort of a protection for the investor that says we can't buy those bonds back from the investor for a period of 10 years from the date they were issued. So what we're able to do, we're not at that 10-year mark with the Series 2012 bonds. However, what we're able to do, and this is completely industry standard, nothing out of the ordinary. Rates in the market today are so low that we're able to go ahead and issue bonds today in an amount sufficient to cover all of the principal and interest payments that would be due between now and the future call date in 2022 once we hit that 10-year mark. So basically, you're issuing new bonds, putting that money in escrow, and granted that escrow account's not earning any interest at all, but that allows you to defease the bonds in advance of that 10-year call requirement. And so that was kind of a lot more information, but just sort of full disclosure. That's how we're able to refinance the bonds, defease them in full without having to wait the full 10 years, is by going ahead and setting aside that money in escrow account. And that's something that you guys have done in the past. It really is traditional. Any other questions?
Bill, did you have a question?
No, I also make a motion to adopt a resolution authorizing the issuance of the refunding revenue bond, sorry.
Okay. Motion by Mr. Talby. I'll second that.
Oh, I was gonna second it.
Go ahead, Brenda, I'll give it to you.
Okay, I'll second that motion.
Second by Ms. Considine. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Is Sherry here now? I think I seen her. Sherry, are you here? Okay.
She was here. She said hi. She got
That's
on
what I
and said
thought.
hello.
That was her.
I see her.
She's
I'm
there.
here.
Can you hear me?
Okay, yes. So okay, so you voted? Okay, motion carries 5-0, I believe. I believe Sherry voted from what I can tell.
Thank you, guys. I look forward to reporting the results. And I'm glad to stick around for the main meeting if you guys need me to for the top resolution. Just let me know if you would like me to hang around.
Do Do you think we need him to, do you all think you all have more questions for him?
I don't believe we will.
I wouldn't foresee additional questions. We would have posed them at this point.
Right, that's kind of what I was thinking. So I think you're good to go.
I appreciate you guys. If there should be a question, Alicia has my cell number. I'll kind of be on standby. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you guys. Bye.
Okay. We have about 15 minutes before the other meeting. We don't.
We
have
gotta
to- we're
adjourn.
just- Oh, yeah, sorry. Good job, Bill. Need a motion to
Make
adjourn.
Make motion to
Real
adjourn.
quick before you adjourn, do we have to read the resolution out loud for the minutes or, as we always have in the past? So I just want to make sure we don't miss something.
You're not required to. You can just adopt the resolution as presented,
Okay.
which is
All
what we
right,
had
just
done.
wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Okay. Motion by Mr. Talby to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Second by Ms. Constance. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. I see your hand, Sherry. I can see that one. We are now adjourned and we'll be back in 15 minutes. Will you stay on this link, right? Okay. I'm gonna go put my dogs up so y'all don't have to listen to all this while this meeting's going on. So I shall return.
Yep, same link. And everyone just know that I'm not stopping the Google Meet recording because I'm not sure if I can start it back up again. So I probably just want to mute your mic.
Okay, we are now going to call this meeting to order at 6:30 PM, Tuesday, February 16th. We would like to welcome everyone virtually. At this time, we would like you to stand and have a moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. And now the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We are now on item number 1 and item number 2, review of the agenda and adoption of the agenda. Does anybody need to make any additions, take anything off? If not, would anybody like to make a motion?
I make a motion to adopt the agenda as it stands.
Okay, motion by Ms. Considine,
I'll second.
second by Ms. Richardson. All those in favor signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Item number 3, approval of minutes for the January 4th, 2021 organizational meeting, January 19th, 2021 regular meeting, January 25th, 2021 draft budget meeting, and February 9th, 2021 special meeting. Any additions to those, or do they need to be separated, or is everybody fine with adopting as they stand? Okay,
Move forward.
okay. Are you making a motion, Ms. Brenda?
I make a motion that we adopt, and I'm having trouble speaking tonight, the minutes from the 4th, the 19th, the 25th, and February 9th.
All right, motion by Ms. Considine. Would anybody like to second?
I'll second it.
Second by Ms. Hendricks. All of those in favor signify by saying aye or raising your hand, please. All right, motion carries 5-0, I believe. Sherry, I can't see you. Did you say aye or raise your hand? Okay, motion carries
I said aye.
5-0. Okay. Okay, student and staff recognition.
I don't really have any student recognition other than just where we've been out, haven't been able to get with Dustin to get the information, but I do want to recognize RDC's mock trial team. They placed second in the state. That's phenomenal for those guys and something to be proud of. Hopefully at our next meeting when we're in person, I'll have those students in and we can recognize them formally at that time. But I wanted to go ahead and do that.
Yes, great job, guys. Public comments. Is that Justin?
As of about 2 minutes ago when I looked, there was nobody out there for public comments.
Okay. All right, item number 4, State District Academic Update, Mr. Holland.
Hello, can you guys hear me okay?
Can.
Sometimes it's 50-50 on my laptop as to whether it picks up or not, so I was rolling the dice on it. How is everybody? Hope everybody's staying warm. We were going to just talk about a few things coming up, talk about kind of where we're at with the district. With the high school, we've got our ACT test that's coming up. That's going to be March 8th through the 12th. That's typically done in a different fashion. It's typically done with usually your one shot, and then you have your makeup. With this being the case of COVID and some of the things that's going on with that, the high school, what we have done is we're working with the high school to have this spread out over a 3-day period, which would be the 9th, the 10th, and the 11th. Some catch-ups on the 12th, and using that 8th as training a lot more staff members to be testing proctors than we've used before because of the need to spread folks out. We are using many more people than we have in years past. And so we have decided that that's going to be the case on March 8th through the 12th. And we'll get those sophomores and juniors tested, hopefully get them all taken care of with the ACT.
Greg, can I mention real quick on that? That's the week, if you look at the calendar that we put out, we've chosen, instead of being hybrid that week and the A, B groups coming in at the high school, that week it will be sophomores and juniors coming in, and the others will be virtual for that week of the hybrid. That's so we don't overfill the building while we're still in the hybrid and the 6-foot spacing. If we brought all the hybrid and the sophomores and the juniors in, we would be over capacity in the building. So that's why you'll see on that schedule that week will be virtual only for the freshmen and the seniors, and the sophomores and juniors will be in the building that week. Thank you.
Yeah. One of the things that we are in discussion with the principals about is summer school. We know that there's going to be a need for summer school this particular year at a different level than it's ever been. In years past, the elementary may have Shear, who hosts summer school, with some of those students kind of feeding into that. And Baker has never really hosted a summer school. RDC has done something in years past, as well as GRC. But this year, we've started our discussions about what that's going to look like. More discussions will come, and we will get that information out to parents. We want to give them plenty of time to be able to prepare for that from a time perspective, so that there's no vacations and things that are set, but also so that they understand what capabilities that they have, who that we're targeting, and that sort of thing. So we're in an ongoing phase with that right now. And we look to have some information out to parents very shortly with that. So if you field any questions with that, that's something we know that we're going to have to really work with the students from a remediation standpoint, as well as that tutoring standpoint. And we have several schools who are doing that as we speak, where that they are doing the tutoring process after school and really trying to catch some students up as well. This is a different learning environment. And we know that it's challenging. And one of the things that we are seeing, not just with Clark County, but we're seeing across the state as well as across the nation, is some of those students who have maybe struggled academically in school in the traditional method. Some of those students are doing well. And for other students, some of those who have really done well in years past, they may be struggling a little bit with that. So we're taking a look at all learning styles and want to have this open for all students to make sure that we're catching as many gaps and that type of thing as we possibly can. But that's a discussion that we're having regularly, and we will continue to have something put into place. And it's been communicated to every school that there is going to be a need to have summer school at their building this particular year. So in kind of transitioning back to what we had talked about at the very beginning, where the elementaries may have just had one school doing it, there's going to be a need to have all 4 elementaries, Baker's making preparations, RDC is making preparations, and GRC as well. So there'll be a summer school at each of those buildings, and we're working out the logistics of that through transportation, what that's going to look like, those types of things, and we'll, in an upcoming meeting, we'll be happy to share more details with you on that, especially at the March meeting. We've got our next set of map data. We did our first round of map data virtually. That always presents some challenges. That's not something that we have done previously. That's been something that we've been able to administer in person. And for this particular time frame to get some data on students, we did it virtually. The next go around for that, we're looking forward to hopefully being able to have students back in the building and to do that in person. Certainly the in-person, we can eliminate some of the potential skewed data of if someone may be hearing that their student is struggling a little bit and they want to offer a little bit of assistance or whatnot. We know that those types of things being done virtually, that could be the case. So we look for a little bit of anomalies when we're disaggregating data, but that's one of the things that we're looking forward to is this next go around is to be able to actually have the students in the building to take care of those anomalies and make sure we're comparing that data from what we last saw when they last took it last school year to this go around, the one that we had virtually, to the one that we're about to take coming up. And we're going to be disaggregating that data, comparing it, and really being able to analyze and see where our students are at. The testing, one of the things I wanted to mention to you all, Commissioner Glass, in one of his memos that he put out about 3 weeks ago, he put out something that kind of stated that he's still unsure as to what the testing process is going to look like. It depends on some of the waivers that may be acquired. At this stage, we're preparing it's a full go. It's easier for us to prepare bigger and then to scale back as opposed to, in my opinion, to do it the opposite way. So we're preparing for testing to go forward with that. I don't know that that's going to be the case. There's been enough discussion, enough mention that lets us know that there's probably going to be some flexibility given as to what that's going to look like. But more information still to come. I believe they have their next reading on that coming up, or it's just happened. It's very close within this week. They have that discussion that they're having with that. So I look for Commissioner Glass to put some information out to us, kind of give us an idea. And once we get that, I'll be happy to relay that to you guys as well. And one of the things too, I wanted to take a quick moment. It's easy for us, and I talk to my colleagues around, the state and surrounding counties, and it's kind of easy to get caught up in the moment of what we're doing. And so much, we try to be as proactive as we possibly can with so many things we have to be reactive with in this time frame. But one thing that's easy to have happen is not to be thinking of the next level stuff. And I don't know if Justin's in a position where he can bring one of those slides up and actually show, but I had actually sent to be downloaded. One of the things that we're really happy about is we're going to try to take our education to another level with the creation of the STEM bus. And STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And that's something that kind of proud about and happy that we're going to be able to do that with. And right now, it's in the final stages. They've been working on it since September, and hopefully we'll have the bus in about the end of February. And I don't know if he can't bring it up or it's not something that can be shared there. Certainly it's in your quote unquote packet that we submit to you, and you can take a look at it. But it's a really neat creation, and it takes a bus. Yeah, there we go. Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Payson. This takes it, here's a quick slide. Kind of shows you the color scheme and stuff like that. So while we're doing all of these things that we've been doing, I've been meeting with the company that we're doing this with almost on a weekly basis. Sometimes it's every couple of weeks. And we're able to handpick and design what we want it to look like. And so it kind of, if you'll see, there about midway down, that's kind of what the wrap is going to look like, the bus wrap. And we kind of designed that because we wanted a cleaner look, but we wanted something that really kind of showcased who we are and that type of thing. The one on the bottom, the bus on the bottom, that kind of shows you what the interior is going to be. You're going to have cabinets that can be removed from the bus, and they can move around and so forth. There's the picture of the cabinets beside of it, and we color coordinated those as well. They'll be able to, there's a whiteboard on top of the cabinets, and they're going to actually be able to write on those and learn, and that's kind of like their whiteboards and stuff, and they'll be up on the sides of the windows as well, where they'll have that. Plenty of USB ports. We decided to go with iPads. I believe it's iPad minis that the students will be able to actually work with on that. And if you'll take a look on the bottom right-hand side, you'll see, if you look at the top, the ceiling of the bus, if you will, we picked out 10 constellations that are going to be there in the northern hemisphere. And and each of those constellations can be turned on or off with a separate switch. So if you wanted to study in a particular, say it's a particular season and only 3 of them are in, and you wanted to turn everything else off, you could study those. The kids could actually lay on their backs or take a look at it and actually study those. And the neat part about this is they'll be able to go home and actually go outside and find those same constellations. So that's kind of what we're wanting to do. Show them something in school, really teach them something, but help to facilitate that learning once they get home and outside with some of those outside interests. So that's kind of a snapshot of where we're at right now, plus a snapshot of where we want to go. And so I just wanted to take a moment and kind of bring everybody up to speed sort of with some things that's going on.
Greg, I also like to mention the bus has on the side of it, it has an awning on the outside so that when we're not in the state we're in of a pandemic that we're in now, this bus can travel to the schools. School classrooms can come out to the bus, and then there's an awning that covers it to keep them out of the sun and those things. They can actually turn it into an outdoor classroom. And that's the way we'll use it when we're back into school under our regular circumstances. So this isn't something that's just going to be used as we do our virtual. This is something that we plan on being scheduled at elementary through high schools throughout the week, each week.
They'll rotate that around, but we're going to work on that schedule, and they'll rotate that around to be able to be at the buildings. The students can actually come into this. It has both heat and air conditioning. Something that's really a nice feature too is it has a lift on the back so that we can actually take those cabinets actually out, but we also can, it's wheelchair accessible to where we can actually bring, so any student has access to that. So we have to have the lift with that. It has a generator, and it has a window that we put in so that inside of the bus, the teacher can have underneath of the awning, they can take some of those cabinets and put them outside. They can work with the students inside the bus and outside the bus, but actually have a window to where they're communicating with the student back and forth, or with another teacher or an assistant and so forth. So try to.
Hey, Greg, I have a question. How are you going to staff that?
That's something that we're going to look to. We have been in contact with UK, and there's a professor there who deals specifically with the STEM, and that's what we're looking to do is to actually go with someone who is STEM certified. And one of the things that we'd like to do, especially in this time frame, is to work with them on potentially getting those PDLs, so that that person who's hired has plenty of time to get their PDL if possible, and they can actually transport that bus stop into it. If it's a barrier right away, we're going to work with the transportation department. I'm picking up some keys. Can you hear me a little bit better now? Okay. For those people, we're going to try to actually get them to have their CDL. If that's not the case, or at least it takes a little bit of time because it's a process. The bus garage, we talked to transportation, and we know we can take it to a spot, park it, and then come back to get that, because our goal is to be able to have it at a school for an entire day. So hypothetically, if we're looking at all the schools being served, you could have all 4 elementaries Monday through Thursday, Baker on a Friday, and do a rotation of RDC and GRC, and then start that process through again. And we tried to, one of the things that it's taken a little bit longer because we wanted to really hit the point of the bus design and the look. We didn't want to turn off the younger kids because it looked too much older. And then we didn't want to turn off the older kids because it looked too young. So that's one of the things we tried to do is to make it to where it's universal, that it could work with all grade levels. So, and hopefully that will be the case, and they'll see that and they'll like the design of it. And it's something that we can work well with, but that's the idea. And then in situations like this, if we do, let's hope that we don't have to remain in a situation like this to where that, we're out for a period of time, but heaven forbid we actually have to do something like this. We will then have the opportunity to actually take the bus out into the community at any point in time. It has Wi-Fi capabilities. I believe it's up to about 100 feet. Maybe it's a little bit more. So it has that it takes with it. So it's not going to be reliant on anything surrounding it to provide that. And so that's the idea. We can take it as a learning tool into the community, but we can also make it a part of our school system at each of the schools as well.
Okay, I think I'd left my mic on, so you were a little garbled.
Sure.
So, and I'll ask my question, then I'll turn my mic back off. How about that? So you are looking to work with UK and you're going to hire a whole new position for the bus. Is that how?
Yes, that would be something that we would look to do in the future, potentially for next year with it coming through, not still garbled.
No, you're good.
Okay. With the timeframe that it is for right now, for next year, we would look to be able to do that. And we've been in contact with UK about some of their.
Brenda, you're still unmuted.
Does that help? Does that help? Okay. So we've been in contact. I'll back up. We've been in contact with UK. We were looking at their graduates in December in case we were able to get somebody in sooner, but that wasn't going to be the case with the speed of the bus. And we told them, listen, just make sure we get it right. So with that being the case, this will be something that we can utilize with our science teachers in the buildings for the rest of this particular year, but moving forward for next year, that's what we would look to do. And so we've got someone that we're speaking to about that with some of their people who specifically deal with STEM. And then they can correlate with the different teachers in the district and so forth to try to really enhance. And something too, you know, it's nice to be able to have this from a gifted and talented standpoint, but this goes well beyond that, because this is targeting every kid. Every kid has those capabilities of being a part of that, and it's not just something of being identified. They can participate with this. So that's something that's of benefit too as we move forward.
Mr. Holland, can I ask you where the funding will come for this?
That's grant funded. We're going to use grant funds. So it will not be anything that's general fund.
I know that we've talked about personally going forward with the virtual program next year and all that. Is this something that a virtual teacher could possibly do?
Potentially. With the STEM, we really want to hone in on someone who's STEM certified, because that's a different type of learning. And so when you're focused on the science and technology and engineering and math portion of that, it's a little bit different from just working with someone who has specialized with the virtual element. I don't want to say no to that, because certainly anyone could be a candidate. But I think when you're looking at STEM and you're looking to really build something in a program, I think that's the element that we want to go with. So it's possible, but I think focusing on the STEM certification would be key.
Hey, Greg, did you include this in the CDIP? Because this would be a great activity that needs to be.
I'll take a look and see. I think we may have mentioned it one time. Actually, we may not have mentioned that in this year's CDIP. And if not, then we can go in and we can touch that up. Okay,
because did you all approve the CDIP in December? Because we haven't approved the CDIP since I've been on the board in January.
No, we took a little bit of a waiver, and so we finished that in February. And so I was waiting to get some feedback to see if they had any feedback from the state, but that's something that we can bring to you guys in March for that.
Okay, because I think it's in regulation that the board has to approve it.
Yes. And with that being said, I can go back in and I'll open that back up and actually put that in the CDIP now that you're mentioning that. Yeah. Anything else? Thank you all. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Greg. Mr. Christie, did you have anything else you wanted to add to state and district academic
Nope,
updates?
I'm okay, other than we'll go back, like I said, and look at the CDIP. I think when we were doing the CDIP and preliminarily doing that, we weren't as far along on the STEM bus at that time, probably far enough along to know whether the bus was going to come first or a staff was going to come first. So it's kind of, by the way the grants have come in, the way we've been able to work it, it's the bus has come first, so we can go back and put that in.
Okay. All right, if nobody has any more questions, we will move to item number 5.
Can I add one more thing? Sorry, one more thing real quick. We're going to be one of only 2 districts in the state that has this. And this is huge. This is big for our kids. This is big for the STEM program and can be a huge stepping stone for us to move forward with the STEM program here. And like I said, there's only one other one in the state, one other county and state that has it. So that puts us right up at the elite with being able to do some of this.
Thank you. All right, item number 5, consider approval of first reading of the 2021-2022 school calendar options from calendar committee. Paul Christie and Christy Bush.
Christy,
Good
you want to
evening.
go ahead with it?
Sure, thank you. You have been given access to both meeting drives. If you've had a chance to look at that, from where we began to where we are tonight. The second meeting took place last week with some concerns that we hashed out, and some of them were start and stop dates, Christmas break, the change in fall break, teacher work days, working January 3rd or not, employees of ours that live in other districts. And we came to a compromise with the committee of 13 for the 3 uploaded options that you have in front of you right now. 2 of them are 176 instructional days. 1 is 174. There are different start and ending dates for the year. There's a difference in the teacher work days. And besides that, they're pretty much the same with holidays, spring break, Christmas break. I think that would be all the changes. Do you have any questions, concerns on this first read of options 1, 2, or 3?
Ms. Bush, I have I guess, inquiry on one of the items you mentioned was concerns of teachers that live out of the district. Can you comment a little further on that? What was the issue or what was the concern with that?
Yes, sir. We did a poll using Munis to find out how many teachers actually work in our district but live in other places. Because traditionally our spring break falls the week before. And this year, the committee unanimously wanted it the week after, the first full week of April. So in the investigating Munis, we found out that 12% of our staff live in Lexington, 68% of our staff live in Winchester, and a total of 15% live in Powell, Montgomery, Madison, Bourbon, and Estill. And as of right now, the other 5 counties are going to, and those are just the counties that touch us, those are going to be the first week of April, with Montgomery County still waiting to be approved with their board, but that is what they're projecting as well. Did that answer your question, Mr. Talby?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Christy, could you explain about the NTI days for next year?
The NTI application, it's now called the CLP. That is a continuum of learning plan. We always have to change our acronyms. That will be due on May the 1st, 2021. The commissioner is still for 10 days that can be waived with that issue, still to continue learning without having to stop school. The application will be part of the e-proof, and it will be uploaded as another diagnostic on our CDIP. So if you hear the new CLP, that's the new NTI. But it is really just the same application process, 10 days waived, just a different name. Did that answer your question, Sherry? I'm sorry?
So you're thinking we're going to have 10 NTI days for next year, and that's going to be it?
That's what the commissioner, that's what KDE is saying at this point. That's what NTI was prior to the COVID times. It was 10 days. And they're looking at going back to that right this year, last year, and then this year we're unlimited in those days. And that's why we're able to do the virtual days like we're going to be doing tomorrow instead of a possible snow day. That goes away or is slated to go away. I say that, but I suppose anything at this point is still up for discussion, but as it stands right now, everybody, the only difference between that and the way that it was all districts in the state now use it. It used to be something that you could do on your own, just as a choice. I think all 170 districts now are participating in the NTI.
The last dated information from the commissioner was 1/27 about the application.
And until this past year, we never participated in NTI? Is that correct?
That is correct.
Correct.
Okay.
Traditionally, in the past, weather hasn't been that big of a deal for us in Clark County. Of course, Mother Nature has a mind of her own right now.
Christy, do you have a recommendation on which calendar that the group liked, the 13 that you had working on it?
Could you hear me?
No, ma'am.
I'm sorry. The committee, the calendar committee and Mr. Christie's cabinet, we asked both committees and they both chose option 2.
And that's with the 176 days, correct?
Yes, ma'am. Now, option 1 is also 176, but it has a different start and stop date.
With these calendars proposals, would it be that because we can be virtual, that we could minimize snow days in the future?
That's one,
Absolutely.
if you remember, Brenda, one of the reasons, and you and I had this conversation many times, that we didn't like the NTI necessarily back at that time. I don't think our teachers at that time were trained and professionally able to do what we can do now. COVID, if there's anything been learned from it that's positive, our teachers' ability to teach virtually and teach via computer has dramatically increased. We didn't have that capability back when it was just regular NTI. And like Christy has said, for weather-related, generally around here, we have one day, maybe sometimes we'll get a back-to-back day, and maybe even really rare, there'll be 3 days in a row. But yes, the NTI you could almost virtually, I think we average about 6 to 7 snow days a year, and that's what it's been for the last 10 years. That's a rolling average. So I wouldn't think there's no reason at this point to think that 10 days probably wouldn't get us through. We wouldn't have to have any snow days, which would allow you to start thinking earlier about graduations and those kinds of things at the end of the year.
I do think with our Chromebooks K-12, we do have an option before us that we've never had in the past. Is there any other comments or concerns? Would you like for us to make any changes, get back together?
Christy, how come they liked option 2 so much better? You said that was the one they picked. Is there a certain reason why 2 was better than 1 and 3?
If I remember correctly, 2 had, for elementary representatives, the students getting in, it started in the middle of the week. It was a shorter week. gave them a break before they came back in full-time. I know option one is just one more day, but I do remember that that was brought up. Sherry, can you remember something other than that? Since you
No,
were there?
that was the, I think the comment that I remember, for those two calendars, because they were so similar.
One of the things and the second one, that's a week earlier start or a few day earlier start and you get out a few days earlier. That gives a little more time at the end of May, which if you did have snow days or anything you had to make up, it gives you a little bit of time. I know we struggle that first week, and I don't know what it's going to be this year with COVID and everything, but we struggle that first week of June. That's when Clark County is scheduled for 4-H camps, and that usually takes a lot of our youth and a lot of our teachers to do work there. So this calendar option 2 puts you out a week earlier, and it gives a little bit more time in the month of May between then and the start of June when you might consider starting summer school.
So in option 2, you start a week earlier than option 1. Make sure I'm saying this right. I'm trying to find the days. You start one day. I guess the opening day is one day. Is it one day?
If you look at your
it's just
calendar, the start date is in green. That's the first day that'll be the first day for the.
On option 2, you start August the 11th and you end May 19th. On option 1, you start on August the 17th and end May 24th. We did have our traditional fall break in October. If you'll look through the old documents, it was the week of the 15th and the 18th on that weekend, but GRC has a home game on October 15th. So that is why we put it the week after. They do have, every Friday is an away game except the 15th.
Is that for all 3 calendar options? The same date?
Yes, ma'am.
For fall break, okay. It's hard toggling back and forth through 3 documents at once. My only concern with starting a week earlier, if you do 3 weeks of summer school in June this year, that August date's gonna roll around very quickly, whereas if you gave yourself a little bit more cushion and started a week later, I don't know. But then, then you're playing catch up for summer school the following year. You are, as a district, you should know based on student data where you're going to need that. Are you going to need it this year, or are you going to need it more next year? I would think your data would drive that decision.
That is true, and I have heard from the committee and their schools, they're even looking at bringing students back in the first week of August. Because if you think about it, the freshmen at GRC have only walked in the doors 2 days. The 7th graders have seen RDC, 2 days, depending on whether they're hybrid A or B. And then the 5th graders at Baker are the same way. So maybe they're looking at doing something like that, just getting those groups traditionally acclimated back to the school since they've not really been there. Did that make sense?
I think so. So start a week earlier and then have kids come in even the week before that?
That is a discussion that's going around, yes.
Okay.
And unanimously, it was 176 days. We want the babies in and we want to keep them for as long as we can.
Are we gonna put these out to the other staff, or are we just gonna go with this? I know previously we've put it out and let people vote and all that. Are we done with those days, or what are we doing there?
Well, the very first meeting with the calendar committee, they had a week to go back to their staff and discuss. If you'll look in the older drive, you'll see blank blue calendars where they could work through the good, bad, and the ugly and try to come back to that second meeting with something that everyone could live with. But it's totally your call.
And Brenda, to your mention there, I'm okay with the 1 or 2. The differences being you're either going to be crowded between the end of summer school and the start of school, or you're going to be possibly crowded at the end of school next year and any summer schools that might start then. It's kind of a flip of a coin on that.
It's just a catch-22. You either do it this year or, it'll catch you next year. And that was just kind of, I guess if you kind of knew if your students were really, if you wanted them, in my mind, okay, and it's really hard for me to take being an educator out of it. If I wanted them to have a head start on the front end, then I would do it this year.
A week later, is that what you're saying? If you wanted to have that head start, be a week later.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, but I don't want to go against what the calendar committee, because they do the work, and I don't want to be the person to come in and say, no, let's change it. But that's just my mind, I think about stuff like that.
I'm assuming that, though, the calendar committee said they could live with all 3 of these, Ms. Brenda, so if that's where you're leading, on this kind of stuff, more so than what, per se, I would, because you've been in this. So we are kind of looking at you right now going, what do you think? So now's your moment to shine.
Well, I'm going to refer it back to the superintendent. What do you think, Mr. Christie? I mean, I don't want to put you on the spot, but, do you anticipate needing the days on this end, this summer in June, versus holding off and waiting till June of 22? And that would give you, if you start earlier, that's going to give you the 22 June days.
I went with kind of what the group was saying, but personally, I'll throw it out there, then I'll deal with my group after that. I like the option 1, starting later this time, because that gives a little more time to work with them. And you're looking at with NTI or CBI or whatever it's going to be called next year. You've got 10 days, so we're probably not going to be looking at snow days. So that end date is probably pretty good, pretty close. And the end date, even the one that starts a week later, still gives you almost a full week in May before you start talking about summer school. I think there needs to be a few days between the end of school and the start of summer school. You got to let staff and kids unwind for just 2 or 3 days at least before. If you don't, you see it impact your numbers of students and staff that want to participate in the summer school. There needs to be a little bit of time. And I think either one of those will, and I think now that we know we're going to have those 10 days and can eliminate snow days, that end date becomes more of a kind of line in the sand kind of thing that we probably won't go past. And again, you understand that even with this calendar, when we set the minutes, you're probably going to be in the same position at the end of next year that you're going to be in at the end of this year. We're going to far exceed the number of hours that's required. So if things got really bad, and we had some really bad weather and we saw it getting late, you have that ability to cut it off at 174 days instead of 176. So you could still make up a couple that way on the back end if something really happened where we had to. So I'm okay with either one. I agree that these kids, I'm certainly hopeful and plan on being back in school the majority of the last 9 weeks with them in full. I'm hopeful that we're going to be there. So it's not going to be like we're looking at right now that those kids have just had 2 days in school in person by the end of the year. Hopefully they're going to have had 9 weeks, almost 9 full weeks of in school. So that takes a little bit of the pressure off of coming back, but I still think there's some room there to bring your grades, like your fourth grade going into fifth, and your sixth grade going into seventh, and eighth going into ninth, bringing those kids back in to better acclimate them to the building prior, so that when they come in, those are your ones that struggle the most with the start, but it's a big change for them, and getting that extra few days in before the start of school really helps.
Just one correction, on option one, says Memorial Day, May 30th. I think it's supposed to be 31st. On option two, it's May 31st. I'm pretty sure May 31st is a Monday.
I'll look at that and see if there's an error.
And the biggest, Ms. Bush, the biggest complaint on option one that or I shouldn't say the biggest complaint, but the complaint you had on option one was for the younger grades having a longer week that first week.
Yes, sir.
And that was coming primarily from your elementary staff. They would be the first to catch that probably. And in the past, we've oftentimes have started in the middle of the week, so we have those first 2 days of kids in, getting them acclimated, and then you've got kind of the weekend to regroup, and then you hit it hard starting in on Monday. But now, so I think that would probably be more an elementary thing than it would be some of your other kids.
Is there a way to modify option one to start on a Wednesday instead of a Tuesday?
You could do that.
Just throwing that out there.
You could do that and move the end date. You just push the end date out one more day. And you're still at that point, you're not hitting your holiday for anything at this point.
Mr. Talby, if you'll look at the 2022, I bet your calendar isn't rolled over yet on your phone. Monday is the 30th of May, 2022. Can you believe we're looking at 22?
So then option two is right. So it says Monday, May 31st. Both of them can't be right because they have opposite dates. They have different dates.
My option 1 and 2 says May 30th on both of them.
Oh, mine doesn't. What was uploaded on our drive, what I'm looking at, it has two different dates.
I'm sorry.
Am I the only one that sees this?
The copies
Brenda,
I
do you see?
I'm trying to toggle back and forth between the three. I didn't print them out.
I mean, it's no big, we shouldn't waste any discussion on it.
No.
That's fine.
It looks like it was the 30th on option 2. Let me look at option 1. Oh, shoot. It looks like it's the 30th on option 1.
Yeah, I've got the 30th on option 1 too.
But
Well,
I haven't
why is mine older, or I don't understand, but.
What are you looking? Are you looking at your Google Docs?
Yeah. Just so that everyone knows I'm not crazy, I'll show you what I'm looking at. Does everyone see it?
There's option 1, the 30th.
Okay.
And option 2, it's the 30th.
Option 2's the 30th.
It says the 31st right there.
Your H is Monday would be the 30th. And then the 31st would follow it. But I see what you're saying. 30 days has September, April, May, and November. Right? Are you thinking of the?
No, I mean, y'all see option 2 at the very end, Memorial Day, Monday, May 31st, or do y'all see Monday, May 30th?
Monday,
Yeah.
May 30th.
Well, I'm looking at this
Mine
right
is
now.
the same, Bill. Mine's the same as yours.
Okay.
I get what you're
Okay.
saying. My paper, I'm looking at, it's the same as yours.
Okay.
Okay, go back to option 1 real quick.
It has Monday, May 31st for Memorial Day on, option 2, and then option 1, it has Monday,
Oh, I
May
see, it's
30th,
got the
Memorial
M
Day.
for.
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh,
I got
I
you,
was looking
Bill.
at H. I got you.
I was just looking at the, gotcha.
Okay.
See, Brenda, it's
Okay.
us, it's not them.
The M is for makeup day too, guys. It's not
Makeup
Memorial
Day, right, it's not
Makeup
Memorial Day. H is for
Not-
holiday, M is for
Yeah, the
makeup.
M's,
So option
all the
2,
M's that you see are for possible makeup days in case of inclement weather days.
right, and in option 2, the 31st would not be a makeup day because we would have already had those built in earlier, correct? Gotcha.
Well, in all of these options, there are no makeups for snow. It's strictly 176, and we plan on using our CLP days if they're approved, our application's approved. If that's what you all want to go with. But this is just the first read, so if there's any mistakes or changes, we can take care of everything before next month.
I'm
I kind of
gonna
like
throw
option
out,
1, but moving it to Wednesday start date instead of Tuesday start date. But I don't know, anybody else have any suggestions?
no, I like that too. And then I'm gonna throw out the very, very popular, have we surveyed the teachers? Just gonna throw that
Teachers
out.
were only-
A while ago.
Just
Right.
through representation of calendar committee, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify.
So far, the only changes, it sounds like the option 1 would be moving August 18th to the first day of school, which would make May the 25th the last day for students, and staff would be Thursday, the 26th. Anything else that you all would like to throw out there before next month?
Would that move the opening day for the staff to Tuesday, August 17th, or would that change that at all?
Yes, it would.
Okay.
Christy, did you want to make a motion on that adjusted calendar? Or do you want us to, are you gonna plan on bringing it back to the calendar committee?
With the first read, I think we need to bring it back again.
But you can go ahead and make the motion with the amendment to it that you want, and that can go back to the calendar committee for them to study, to make recommendations on.
And if you are shooting toward just option 1, that one will be the one fixed and brought back in front of you.
Okay, I'd like to make the motion that we, look at calendar 1, option 1, and make the adjustment on the start date for August 18th. And ending date, May 25th?
For students, yes, ma'am.
Motion by Ms. Richardson.
So the only one calendar, option 1 is what we're going to concentrate on for next meeting. 2 and 3 are off the table. Is that correct?
That's what I've gathered. But we just have well, right now we just got, I don't have a second, so hold on to that thought.
I'll second that.
All right, second by Ms. Considine. All those in favor say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries 5-0. So there you go, Christie.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Christie.
Item number 6, consider approval of the 2021-2022 tentative SBDM allocations. Paul Christie, Alicia Ellis.
Alicia, I'll let you start first.
All right, good evening, everyone. After you have had a chance to review the packet, you can tell that this allocation is quite different from what the board has been presented in years past. Just in the formatting of the allocation. So just to give a background of that so everyone knows, for many years, we had hired a contractor to put together this allocation piece for us. And we did not do that this year. We decided as an admin team that we were going to take this on ourselves instead of continuing to have that expense on the district, because that's about $4,000 that would be an expense that we chose to save. So with that being said, Christy Bush, DPP, picked up that enrollment demographics piece, which she already presented to you all. So we used that piece that she did for us, and we rolled those numbers forward for enrollment of where we sit now to project our 2022 school year numbers. And so that is what we've put into this allocation. Also with the forethought of knowing that in January, we presented you a budget that was still deficient for the fiscal year itself, not in regards to money rolling over or the contingency balance, just what we planned on bringing in for the year and spending out for the year. We were still looking at a deficient budget, and it was stated at that point that we have pretty much cut bare bones as much as we can cut for the operational sides, and so therefore we had to look now to the staffing side. So just to make a clarifying note, we are not cutting salaries. That, like, our salary tables are not in discussion right now. That is, we would never go backwards on a salary table. So what staff is currently making, that will go forward. We are on the discussion process of cutting positions, and that is within that staffing allocation. So that's what was stated in January. But since that discussion, we have gone back as an admin team and spoken, and I'll let Mr. Christie elaborate on that piece of it, if he wants to talk about that prior to us getting in the exact numbers and how everything's going to fall out in the allocation itself.
Alicia, if you don't mind, let's go through the numbers of how everything falls out, and then we can answer any questions that comes from how we arrive at those numbers. Let's look at the numbers before we start talking about how we did it.
Okay, I can do that. Do you all want me to display the PowerPoint so you can see it from my side instead of flipping back and forth? All right, I will try to present then, so give me a moment. All right, so can you all see the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay, so this is just a restating of basically the laws that we have to follow within the guidelines of putting a staffing allocation together. These are the ratios and what is required to provide. But I'll just jump on into the numbers unless you want any clarification on the previous slide. So currently our 2021 numbers are in that first column. You see that is the projected enrollment of what we are operating on in the fiscal year we sit in right now. And so those numbers are what were presented to you this time last year. That second column there is what we are projecting based on the IC numbers and rolling all the grades forward and where we think we're going to be with enrollment come next school year. Hopefully all back in person, all of our kids showing back up. This is what we think we're going to be sitting at as far as each of the different schools with their overall enrollments for their buildings. And typically you have seen Phoenix included in the allocation, but you have never seen preschool included. And part of just revamping this process and our thought process is we have 9 schools. We want to show you a complete picture of what the district and staffing looks like. So we have included preschool going forward in this. Now, Phoenix and preschool do not fall into that they don't fall into these ratios. They have their own based on their programming and grant fundings that they are provided. So they're not necessarily funded in ratios exactly the same way as the other schools are, but they do obviously account for portions of our staff. So we wanted you all to see that as a whole picture for the district. So with that being said, here's the enrollment numbers. So you can see there's quite a adjustments between the schools, but overall at the end of the day, you're looking at a 2-student change from the prior school year with your SBDM and then accounting for Phoenix and preschool 11 overall. So how that falls out with those ratios is currently in the 2021 school years, overall teaching staff, we currently have 257 teachers. Now this does not include any additional grant funded teachers other than Phoenix and preschool, but our SBDM, that 237 number sitting there, is strictly general fund teachers. So in with the conversation of how we're trying to balance budget and look at staffing allocations and how we're reallocating and all of those funds, the way we have structured these allocations going forward, it looks like your SBDM is going down to 225 teachers for a loss of 12 teaching positions. However, stay with me. We're going to kind of pick up and continue on that in just a minute. In preschool and Phoenix, we're going to continue to staff them exactly the same as they have been staffed this year. And then depending on grant funding and numbers with them, that number could change because there is always room for growth positions based on the need of our students. So this is just a synopsis of the additional certified staff for each school. We are by law required to give a principal and a media librarian. And then the additional positions are what are provided by the district based on the need for what we determine as an admin team and a board for each of those buildings. So this is where they sit now. What we're projecting for the 21-22. And again, you can see I've added the 2021 numbers just so you can see how each building was staffed currently compared to what we're projecting for next year. And you see that difference. And you'll see GRC is losing 3, Phoenix is losing 1, and preschool is gaining 1. So again, stay with me on how we're gonna talk about how these losses are funded going forward. But the 3 for GRC is counselors, social workers. The 1 is a counselor at Phoenix, and then we're adding a counselor to preschool that's going to be paid out of the Head Start grant, who gives us money specifically for mental and social emotional uses. So that's what that 1 preschool will be funded out of. And this is the same thing with
Alicia,
yes.
so just real quick, is there a ratio to determine counselors? Because the ratio you have, at the beginning of the presentation, does it have, I didn't see counselors on here, or does it?
Counselors are on this slide right here, guidance counselors and social workers.
So how do we determine what's the ratio for guidance counselors and social workers based upon the enrollment?
I don't know that.
How do we determine that?
I do not know the exact student to 1 counselor ratio. I know that by law, there is not one that we must staff at this point, right this minute. It is in the works that they are going to start making that part of the allocation, but I'm not sure at this moment what that number is. If someone else knows, please speak up. But this is the number that we've always staffed at, except for the 3 at GRC that we are still going to be giving them, but funding in a different manner just because of our budget situation.
Yeah, I guess that's the reason I was asking. How do we determine that there's we need 3 less?
Well, and we're not truly losing those 3, so that's why I asked you to stay with me till the end, because all of these positions that we're showing as a loss, we're truly not losing those positions. It's due to our budget situation and our availability of the CARES Act funding. So I'll be getting in a little bit more detail as soon as I just kind of show you where we're going. If that's okay.
All right. I'll be quiet.
No, you're fine. No, I'm glad you spoke up and asked.
Okay.
So same thing with classified. The only thing that is by law required with the ratio are the kindergarten and instructional assistants. They're a 24-to-1 ratio for your kindergarten enrollment. So that is where it has fallen out based on the enrollment numbers. And then these are the additional positions: library aides, secretaries, attendance clerks, receptionists, and custodians that are given to each of the locations. So again, you see to the end, Concrete, Justice, and Shear are each losing one IA based on that kindergarten enrollment. However, so this is kind of a synopsis of everything you've just seen. Is basically each of these schools that were showing a loss of either a certified teacher, guidance, or the kindergarten aide are not truly losing those positions, in the sense that we are under the Section 7 funding that is allotted with the SBDM allocations, which is the board's discretion to give additional based on need to the schools for a 1-year increment. So every year, Section 7 is redistributed based on the need for that school year. So basically, we're saying for the need of what we had to do for budget purposes, if we didn't have this CARES Act funding, we truly would have had to have made the adjustments that you just saw so that we could balance our budget, because that was the need of the district financially. However, due to the COVID situation and knowing that our kids have been virtual for a very long time and a lot have fallen behind due to that situation, we foresee that we need to keep all of these staff. We need them to be able to help instructionally get our kids back up to par, because they've not had that chance, unfortunately, being on virtual, and some kids just, virtual's hard. I mean, they need in-person instruction. And so that is, again, Mr. Christie can go into more detail of what he wanted to say in regards to why we have chosen to do this. But basically, because we have the CARES Act available to us, we have chosen that no positions would be cut at this point, but we did have to structure the staffing allocation to show this is what we would have needed to do. But because of CARES Act, we will be funding that, all of those positions out of CARES Act for this next year. Now, come next year for the 23 discussion of staffing, it will be, look at all of this all over again. I mean, we'll be in the same thing, looking at that year in itself. But basically, by doing this move, it's going to save our general fund dollars, basically $120,000, which gets us back to a balanced budget. And it will use a little over $1 million of that $7 million CARES Act grant that we have.
It's an actual savings of $820,000 instead of $120.
Oh, I'm sorry, I misspoke.
$820,000. And
thank you.
The CARES Act, if you recall, it's $7 million, and that can go through 23. And a lot of that money was put on there this time was to be used as CDC and others put it in there and added for it, but to be used for air quality. But we're way, way, way ahead of the game in air quality. We've got some things that you'll be hearing about that we're doing, and we're going to be proposing doing in another building or two, but it's going to be way less than what that $7 million would be needed for. So we're in good shape to use this. Now, keep in mind that what you're seeing tonight is a tentative allocation. We have to do that before March the 1st. We're going to come back to you and the principals we'll come back in the April meeting with a final allocation that will be presented to the principals, and we'll be working with them in the meantime. Now, where these positions are right now looks kind of wacky with the numbers, where it looks like GRC is going up in number of students, and they seem to be losing the most people right now, even though they're not really losing anybody. We may, in the next 30 days, we'll probably go back and we'll readjust that where some of the others, we may put that burden back to some of the others and reduce what it looks like GRC might be losing, and what we're having to use CARES Act to replace at GRC, so it's more evenly spread out. The other thing that we had to consider, one of the considerations was, and this is tough, these are tough decisions, tough discussions, and they'll be tough for people listening to this meeting tonight. One of the other options that we have is the board makes the choice at the elementary level to put a music, art, and a PE teacher at every elementary. That's 12 positions. Those are added costs. That right there is what we're talking about in the numbers of people. But those are important to have. So, we've looked at, going back to reducing that and going back to itinerant. But I don't like those. None of us, when we just had that discussion of like that. And I feel that the way we're going here and using the CARES Act is the best use of that money. And that's what it was intended for. And in fact, on the meeting today with the commissioner and the accounting folks, they even said that this is what it's for. This enables you to be able to do that. So I think we're in line with what we need to be doing here. And we will go back to, I know Mr. Boland's probably listening, and I'd say Josh Mounts is probably listening. We're going to go back and we're going to look at this, and we may make some adjustments to level that out so it doesn't look like the GRC is taking the biggest hit. When they have an increase in students, we may have to pass these and move some of these positions back. But with having said that, just everybody know that everybody is going to be here. This is not a year to be cutting staff. It's not the year to be doing that. And so we'll move forward with that, and it may change. It's not going to change the numbers of the savings because we're not going to go any deeper. And I want to, the allocation, if you I always refer back to that page 1 that she showed you there. That tells you what we have to do. And what we're trying to do is mirror our staffing more closely to what the requirements, state requirements. We exceed the state requirements in a lot of the areas. And that's how you get overstaffed, is when you exceed what the state says you're required. And that's what we're doing in Clark County right now. We exceed what the state says we must finance or we must fund as far as teachers by 23 positions. We're 23 positions overstaffed according, if you went totally by the state allocation, state law and the allocations, we would be 23 staff, over 23 people. So this is a way for us to work through that. We've always been that way, and we've had to tighten up, and over the years we did, and we've been better financially for it. We're in that position. I think what we're doing right now is going to help get us back on our sound footing with finances. I do believe we've really struggled here and stressed the expenditures this year. I think we're going to see some money, some carryovers, so that can help. But we're basing, like Alicia said, we're basing on everything just on what we're bringing in, what we're spending out on next year's budget. And this is what balances that. And that's where we are right now. So it'll change a little bit by the April meeting, but those numbers for your budget won't. And if you recall, we've gone from 2.2 million in deficit to now 820,000 in the black. And that's been in two short months. So it's been difficult. There's been some really, really hard conversations with staff, with the administrators and the different departments in the facility side, transportation side, all the other parts. We've had some really tough conversations, and what, like Alicia said, we've cut it to where we feel that it's going to be hurtful to cut any more. So we were down to a point where staffing is where you have to look. Now, there's some other big things that in the future you can look at. We still do a double tier transportation. That doubles the cost of your transportation. We spend a couple million a year on transportation. We can cut that in half. But then you go back to, do you want to do that and put your preschool or your kindergarten through 12th graders all on the same bus? Going back to you, that's what you would have to do if you go back to a one-tier system. So there's some other things to look at. But we just saw this, and with the CARES Act, it was an opportunity to keep our staff the way we are, and to move forward and to help with the budget for a year.
Have we looked at doing cuts district-wide, or is this just with the teachers?
When you say district, what do you mean district-wide? You mean like central office cuts?
Well, and I'm saying district-wide, so that would be anybody in the district.
Yes, and some of these positions, well, and we started out that way looking at some other positions, and I hesitate naming those positions, but we started out looking at those, and they were more district-wide. But they serviced all the schools, and there's no real allocation for that. And where we were really over in their school staffing, so that was the place that we felt we needed to look at first. Now, there are some things there that there are still potentially some others that we could move over to CARES to generate even more. But just bear in mind, the more we move over to that CARES funding, the more difficult it's going to be for us next year when we have to start either leaving them there, or hopefully we want to start moving those back into our budget. Will become more solid and we can start moving those folks back in. And then we want to look closer at our staffing allocation. I think we've got to get a little bit closer to what the state requires. I'm not saying that we're looking to cut 23 positions. That's not what I'm saying at all. But we need to be aware of where we're overstaffed in the areas that we have to look at. And we need to work with principals. And as we meet this next couple of months with principals, we're going to be meeting with every principal individually. Alicia and Scarlett and I will meet and Greg will meet with every principal individually to talk about their staffing and how we move forward from here.
Can someone explain how we got to the 2.2 million deficit in less than 18 months?
So we have been deficit in our budget for the last 2 years that it's been presented due to doing staff payroll increases, overall budget increases, and not raising taxes to fund that. So that's, a twofold process. If you're going to increase your reoccurring dollars, you also need to your expenditures. You also need to increase your reoccurring revenues, and that did not occur 2 years in a row in our district. So that's why we've gotten to where we've gotten.
Okay, so Alicia, when the tax increase did not occur in August, what was that deficit?
So
I'm putting you on the spot, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I don't have all the numbers right in front of me at this very moment, but basically 2 years ago, we gave, I believe it was a 2 and a 4% on the May budget. I presented it with no increases, and then the tentative budget got approved with the exception of saying, okay, let's increase our salaries by 2 and 4% for certified and classified staff respectively. So in that discussion, it said, okay, that means we know we are committing ourselves to do, I think at that time was at least a 2% tax increase that would increase our taxes at that time, roughly $600,000. And so that did not occur come August. So we were $600,000 in the hole that year. Well, the next year we did the exact same thing again. We gave a 2%, I believe it was, overall raise. I'd have to go verify all my numbers, but basically we gave an overall raise again. And then we kept the tax rate exactly the same. So that was like another $1 million in the hole for us. So it compounds. So we went from like 600,000 to like 1.6 thousand. And then you added again this year, we step raises, and then no tax raise. Not that you necessarily had to for this year just because it was step raises, but just because we were already in the situation we were in, it once again compounded again to be a 2.2 million deficit of how we entered the year we're in right now. So it all compounds with each other.
So, Mr. Christie, I appreciate you and Ms. Ellis working on this, and I agree with you. Right now is not the time to cut teachers when we're bringing more staff, when we're trying to get these kids back in school. But really, what concerns me is, this is, we're taking, we don't have the budget right now. We're using one-time funding, and we're going to be, are we going to be in the same boat next year? Sounds like we're going to be in the same boat this time coming next year. So, we're putting off an issue for another, 12 months, 18 months, whenever we have to make the decision. Now, at the same time, there's $7 million of CARES money. How much have you already allocated besides this little over 1 million to go for to not cut these positions? How much, what other projects are you looking to allocate toward that $7 million?
The other expenses out there, and Alicia can probably tell you exact, but it's been very minimal, if anything else has come out of it at this point. We are looking at some, we Well, we spent it was $2,800, $3,000, something like that out of it to do an ionization system which kills virus, pollen, all these things, because we got 3 buildings that don't have fresh air. Phoenix, preschool, and central office. We did it on central office because it was going to be the least expensive of the 3, and we wanted to try it. So we kind of did it first. Now we're looking at the other 2 buildings, and we're getting the prices on those, and we've gotten those, and those will be coming up for us to discuss here in the next, by the next board meeting. But that's really, at this point, that's really, and now we'll run our summer school, some of our summer school, in addition to some of our other title programs. Some of the money will come from there, but we'll plan on using some of this for the title programs. But if you carried this out even for 3 years, and our hope is, one, you're going to see expenses go down. Where we made the cuts on all the departments, so your expenses are going to go down. And there is that potential, it'll be up to you guys, but there is that potential for an increased revenue, which helps to offset this also. So with expenses going down and revenue coming up, that helps make up some of the deficit there. So you can start to bring those people and put them back on out of the CARES and back into the other at the end somewhere. So there's potential to pull these people back. It's just not going to all be pulled back probably in 1 year. It'll probably take us a couple or 3 years to get them all pulled back in. And as we go through, we'll tighten up on the staffing. And as we have natural attrition of people retiring, we can look at not filling some of those positions and then move some of these people back off. So there's other potential ways of doing it too.
So we have 3 years to allocate toward or utilize the CARES money, correct?
Yes, correct. Yes.
So,
December of 2023 to spend it.
Okay. So that would, even if we're kind of in the same boat, we may not be in the same size boat next year.
Yeah.
And we could still utilize some of that money for the following year. Okay.
If you stayed on board with what you're doing right now and didn't make any changes for 3 years, you're using 3 of the $7 million. So you still got $4 million to put toward other things, your summer school programs and other things.
Okay.
And
Yeah, I
a
would keep that in
caveat,
mind as new projects come up.
a caveat with the CARES Act grant is we were told today that if 85% of it is used for direct services to students, we get an additional $75 per pupil. With how the KDE has held a portion back, Brenda might know a little bit more about how they explain that, but there's like a portion that's held back at the KDE level to then redistribute again based on, and again, it's still in the works of all the details of how that will flow out exactly. But so that's even kind of another revenue source we might have if we structure the use of these CARES Act funds to be direct services to our students, which summer school, these instructional positions that we have done would all fall within those categories. Whereas if we spent it on facilities or any nature of that, that will not be direct services to students. So that would not count towards that 85%, which we are, as Mr. Christie stated, in a very good spot with our facilities. Otherwise, that we may not need more than the 15%. So just keep that in mind too, that we do want the bulk of it to be instructional services for that purpose as well.
Thank you.
So on the second page, when it's talking about the formulas, and GRC has the additional 150, and Baker and Campbell will be staffed an additional 100. Is that the same as it's been in the past, or has that changed?
Those changed. That the 150 meets the state requirements. We still have that.
For high school?
For high school, yeah.
Okay.
And actually, that 150 is for 7 through 12. Now, that's another place where we staff at Baker, and I think it's, Alicia, correct me, I think we're at 100 to 1 right now, the supplemental staffing. And
Baker and RDC are at 100 and GRC 150 in this allocation.
And where we're sitting right now, that's not something that's required by law at Baker at all. So, and we staff that and a supplemental person for every 100 students, but it's 150 is the max. And we got that 150 because we moved last year. We increased that up toward the 150. We got up to 105 last year because we took some counselors off and we put them in the regular allocation and accounted for them that way. Now we're going to put them on this CARES thing right now. So that's how it didn't affect them. But, and of course, at any of these, once you staff it, if their numbers increase to where they go above, I mean, you still have that ability to do an additional teacher once they meet the criteria for enough of a gain of students on that 5th day.
Right.
And we'll see where we
But
are.
this is, I guess my question is,
It went
is
from
this
100
new?
Yes, ma'am. Baker and
changed.
RDC
Okay.
were at 86 for their additional, the
Okay.
the initial
And what was
ratios for
GRC was
class,
what, 100? Was
105. So yes, we increased those. As I was trying to explain during the presentation, is due to the nature of the budget situation.
Right,
That's how
right.
we increased it, to be able to restructure the staffing allocation and then show those positions that we then put on CARES.
Right. So I'm thinking programmatic, what are they losing
Nothing.
by changing that?
Nothing right now.
Nothing this year.
Well, I know, but I mean, listen, you can't use a one-time funding source to carry you. That's a Band-Aid. I mean, that's, we all know that. I mean.
Yes, and that's why next year we have to have this whole discussion again of those numbers and
And
ratios.
we will be having the discussion, and some of those may come off the high school even this year and be going back to Baker and Campbell. They have a potential to move one or two of those positions over to them. And they have a couple there already anyway, but there's a possibility of moving a couple more off the high school. So, but as it is right now, that was the whole point, was we don't want any school to lose any teacher or any counselor or anybody at all in their building. Now, there was some requests to increase some, but we've held off on those. We're going to wait and see what numbers look like. And if numbers warrant it, then we can do that. But there was some requests for some increased staff at some of the other levels, but we didn't do that. We're going to wait and see what numbers pan out to be.
So have you thought about I don't know, I can't remember which House bill or Senate bill that is going to require for every 250 children, a guidance counselor?
Well, I'm waiting to see where that goes. I don't know if they're going to put something,
Right now, it goes into effect in July, but they could still
hold back on it.
change
But
it.
And I don't know, watching that, and we'll just have to see and sit down and see. What becomes important there is what qualifies as counseling. What positions do they count as counseling? Some of your interventionists, some of those things, your psychologists, some of those, does that count in your ratio? So it all comes down, it really comes down to, are we short counselors or not, depending on what gets counted in that to average it out. So we're kind of watching that one closely to see. And preliminarily, when they were first talking about it, when you started counting some of our district level folks that do counseling, social working, psychologists, and all those kinds of people that we have on staff, and those were to be counted in that average. And when you got to that, then we got our numbers down to where we met the average. But we'll see how they do that.
Any more questions, comments?
I want to also put out, when we do it, like some districts, we'll pink slip the masses of non-tenure. We have no intention of doing that. We're not looking to do that. Scarlett, Alicia, Greg, and I will be meeting, like I said, with every principal, and we're going to go through and talk about staffing. And so some of these numbers of which ones being pulled over into to the CARES Act from which school may change before the May, but the intent of it as it is and the budgetary piece of it won't change.
So so it sounds like you're saying that
That could mean a pink slip there. So there are still potentially people, and there will always be people that will be pink slipped each year. And sometimes, but that's the part that we meet with the principals, and that's going to be done at a building level with the principals and not made from a central office those kinds of things. But we're not doing any across the board kinds of pink slips. I think that creates an opportunity for too many people to start looking in other places. And we've got a lot of good people we don't want to lose.
I just wanted that clarification. Thanks.
Can I just ask, with the numbers increasing at GRC and at Campbell, how we will address the staffing issues there? It seems like when you grow by those numbers that you would have to increase staff, and with us already being in a deficit.
And actually do an accounting of those, and if they do increase, if those are true increases, then that's where we look at what we call the growth teachers. We would have to add a teacher because their numbers of students have shown up and they're above what we anticipated in the allocation. We're allocating right now for the numbers as they're being shown. So if more than that shows up, then we would have to add teachers. And we've done that in the past. We've had to add some years as many as 4 or 5 teachers to account for that. And if we do, those are 1-year contracts, and we see where those numbers go by the end of the year. And if we need to, we do that each year. And some of those would be getting pink slip. If we've got any of those growth type teachers, those could potentially be pink slip teachers also this year, depending upon numbers.
So where do we get our numbers that we're looking at, the growth numbers?
Well, right now, the numbers that you're looking at, you're just taking numbers and from preschool to kindergarten, that's kind of the stretch. You have to kind of do some estimating there, but the numbers that you're looking at, we're rolling numbers of kids that are already in the building. In the first grade, we're figuring if there's, and I'll just throw a number out, if there's 400 first graders across the district, we're figuring next year there's going to be 400 second graders. And then we just roll them up that way. And that's how we get to those projections for the most part, yeah.
Thank you.
So if let's say we are over at Campbell and GRC next year, where will the funding come to hire those teachers? The 5th day.
If we have to hire growth teachers, it comes from general fund. But you got to understand, if it comes from general fund, it's true growth, and that's additional seat monies that's bringing in. It should offset itself.
Right.
So we won't. I'm sorry.
Are we still working off of the 18-19 SEEK formula?
Yes.
For next year?
Yes.
We're funded on the 18-19, yes.
Was that a good year?
Yes, it was.
It was a very good year.
Okay.
Yes.
That was higher numbers than we're projecting right now, so that was
That's
a
what I
good
was
year
thinking.
for us. Yes, you remember correctly.
I've heard some talk about this. They may be looking at something like this and just setting it and saying this is what it's going to be until, and maybe setting it where it is and not trying to go up or down. Right now, that's what it's going to be for a couple of years, and we'll look at moving it up and not become as much attendance based as it is, or as it was back then. We're not attendance based now, but they're kind of looking. I think this may be a possible model.
So I'm trying to just wrap my head around the CARES Act money, Esser. If you use it for the deficit, for the 800 it's going to be $1 million because of the retirement or step raises or whatever. Every school would start off with their current staffing allocation as it is now, even though the staffing allocation is to change, correct? If we approve this staffing allocation, you have a new staffing allocation, which would reflect cuts.
No, I'm not saying that we would come back in May. I don't think there would be any cuts come back in May. The only thing that might change would be, instead of, let's say, 4 coming off the board side at the high school and going into the CARES Act, maybe there's only 3 comes off at the high school, and maybe there's 3 that comes off at Baker or Campbell or someplace else. It's a juggling act there, and we look at the positions. Now, of course, today they're saying that you can take any teaching position, but we were kind of looking at, and we went to the high school, we were looking at counseling, and we were looking at those things that we knew would fit into that 85%. And they kind of moved the cheese a little bit on that, what fits into that 85%. We were we were shooting for a more narrow target in that 85% before today, and it's been opened up a little bit today. So that would be the only thing that we would adjust. We won't adjust the numbers to where a building gets cut anybody right now. The only thing that we would adjust would be how many in that building's coming off of the board side and going on to CARES funding. That might be about the only adjustment.
Okay, so if what is in a building right now, if you use the CARES Act, they would start the fall with that number. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yeah, exactly.
It may shuffle. It may be that two may move over to CARES and one doesn't have to.
Yeah,
or
but they
whatever.
won't even know. Yeah.
They won't feel the cut. The
No,
schools
no,
will not feel the
school would
cut.
not see- No, the school would not see a cut in staffing. And that's just been a consensus in all of our discussions from the school through central office and through our cabinet, that this is just not a good time to look at any kind of cuts.
No, I think it's the worst time to look at classroom and
Yes.
cuts because of where we're going to be. And so I know it's not easy to balance the budget.
Well, the largest part of that 2.2 that we're talking about, the largest part of that has come from cuts in our departments across the board of tightening the belt on spending and things that we're doing there. So that's the bulk of the cuts have come from there. And then the CARES has helped us with the other piece.
So, Mr. Christie, is there other, so we talked about the CARES Act, but is there other packages that's coming down the line that for K through 12 specifically? And the reason I ask, I'm looking at this COVID relief package signed into law in December 2020 that's allocated, looks like $54 billion for K through 12. I mean, do we have any information on that?
Nothing solid. There is still talk of, well, like the piece that even Alicia was talking about, some of the current money's already been held back, and we'll get it once they see that we meet the certain criteria for spending. There could be additional money there. There are other packages. They're talking about other relief packages that have not made their way through the legislative sessions and made their way to the schools. Some are still being held at the federal level. I'm not sure that there's any that's being held at the state level this time that hasn't filtered its way to the schools already. And I'm not aware of more. Of course, we're still trying to work with FEMA on some reimbursement on some things, but that one they just did an about face when the federal folks came out with the packages of help, then they backed off. FEMA came in telling us that they were going to pay for just about everything COVID related, and we're down now to I don't know if we're going to see anything or not. So we've switched some other things over. There was a round one of the CARES that had to be spent, and we used a lot. If you remember, we used a lot of it for computers. We used it on a lot of things. You all spent that. And it had to be spent before you could even touch any of this. So that's all I'm aware of right now. The other is just talk about some others, a lot of talk about some others coming in, more funding. I was very pleasantly surprised when we got the CARES funding, because I had there was no indication that it was going to increase that much, because there was no indication that they were going to put the air quality controls piece under the CARES funding. And when they did that, that's what shot that cost up tremendously.
What do you anticipate the air quality control cost for the district out of that second round of funding?
30 to 50,000. Okay. That probably to take care of all of it.
All right.
And now I will say too, that what we would put on these buildings are things, if we move forward with construction of a new facility, these can be taken off and be put into those new buildings too. So whatever we spend here doesn't necessarily mean it's going to stay with these buildings when we do something with them. If you move forward and build a preschool or build a Phoenix Academy, we're going to be able to pull this equipment off and put it into the return air ducts in some of our other buildings and continue to do it. It's not the big cost is getting those air handlers, which we've got the 100% fresh air on all but 3 of our buildings, and a lot of places don't have that. And those are the things that they're $500,000 to $750,000 for an air handler on some of those. So that's why the others that's up there, I think. But we've already done all of that. And, we've done a lot of things in this district over the years that we've almost been, in some ways penalized for because we've been aggressive in doing the things, air handlers, temperature things, camera systems. You know, we had camera systems in all of our buildings, and then Safe Schools comes out and they pass at that time it was Senate Bill 1 that required all this stuff, and we'd already, you know, you could get money for it, and we'd already done all that. So we weren't able to use that as much as we might have had we not been progressive and done those things, which is still is no reason to stop and not do those things.
Well, with the CARES money, you know, I still keep going, it's a Band-Aid, and I think the whole purpose of it is to address the gaps that kids have developed since they have been home. We know that it's happened. I mean, if it was a perfect world, then probably not, but it's not perfect. So you know, for me, if I vote to use the CARES money to cover the deficits, I want it in the classrooms, making a difference. I don't want it in operations, or I'm going to vote no.
Yeah. Anything that we would use it for any kind of operations, if it gets above that 20,000, it comes to you all. You have to approve it. You know, well, I take that back. On the grant fundings, you don't. But anything, I apologize. Anything that we would do that is going to be something that we would consider major, it's going to come to you all, and we'll have this conversation about what we're doing, why we're recommending it.
Well, because I feel like the kids have suffered through all of this the most, and anything we can do to get them academically caught up and ahead, I'm all for it.
That's your tutoring, after-school tutoring, your summer school programs, all those.
Whatever you can throw at them.
Yeah,
That's
and
what I'm
possibly
about.
some more interventionist reading. Yeah.
Yes, I mean, because to me, that's what I think the CARES money is taking the staff that you currently have and then adding, you know, 4 or 5 more teachers at each school with the CARES money instead of covering what we currently have. I think that's the whole purpose of the additional funding, is to provide the resources that you don't have for the situation.
And we're looking at that, and we'll be coming back to you to talk about some of the positions that we're looking at doing that and how that will relate to the classrooms and buildings.
Okay.
Any more questions or comments? If not, would anybody like to make a motion?
Make a motion to approve the 2021-22 tentative site-based SBDM allocation.
Motion by Mr. Tobby.
I second that motion.
Second by Ms. Constant. All those in favor, raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, opposed? Motion carries 5-0. All right, item number 7, adopt a resolution authorizing the Clark County School District Finance Corporation to issue refunding revenue bonds. Alicia, Paul?
So this is just the board side of the finance corp that we had at 6 o'clock. We have to also read a resolution on the regular board meeting to adopt, to sell the bond.
Right.
You should have a copy of the resolution as it needs to be presented. You should have a copy of that.
Do we need a motion? I make a motion to adopt the resolution.
I
Motion
second.
by Megan, you gotta be on.
Oh, sorry.
Motion by Ms. Considine, second by Ms. Hendricks. All those in favor, say aye or raise your hand. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0, I believe. Is Sherry, I've lost her again. You see her, Brenda?
I'm here.
Okay.
I
Okay.
raised my hand.
Well, you're disappearing on my screen. I don't know. You just keep going away. There you are. Now you're at the bottom. Okay.
I see you. Yep.
Okay. As long as you're there. All right. Item number 8, assignment of board member committee appointments. This is what we have to do annually, and since we have new board members, we have to reassign anyway. Arlene, do you have the committee that are open right now for sure?
No, I do not.
I don't know what Mr. Peridot and Mr. Heisel were on.
Mr. Heisel, one of them was on Partners in Education, I know. And I believe was one of them on Community Education Advisory Council, or is that one of you guys?
I don't know. Sherry and Bill, or do you all just want to switch committees around, or Brenda and Megan, do you all just want to kind of jump in where there were vacancies?
I've already attended 2 Partners in Education.
Well, look at you, Miss Overachiever.
They contacted me in November, December, and asked me, I think it was Mr. Yates.
Okay.
I didn't know that. I just said, sure, you know me. I'm like, okay,
So
whatever.
We'll just go ahead and put you on that one then.
Now, if you don't want me on it, I will step off and let somebody else do it.
No, you're good. If you're good with being on that one, we'll just put you on it since you've been going anyway.
I'll take the leftovers, I guess.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Oh, you're
No,
okay.
fine.
I'm just
Who's
kidding.
on
I don't
Community
care.
Education? Community Education Advisory Council. Do we have anybody? Sherry, Bill, are you all on that?
I'm on the calendar committee and the finance committee. And so we've taken care of the calendar.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm on the ATC committee and finance committee. I don't even, yeah, I'm on those 2 committees.
You and Sherry both are on the finance committee?
For some reason, we were.
Yep. I'd gladly come off.
Well, was there something in there where you all have to come off? Wasn't there like
Yes, it has where one board member serves 2 years and one board member serves 1 year. So it's time for I don't remember if you all appointed that person last time or not.
so who's only been on there a year? Or who's
I
supposed
think
to be
Bill and I both served last year.
Yeah,
Right.
both have been on 1 year.
Correct.
Okay, so which one was there either one appointed for 2 years, or does it matter?
I don't remember, honestly. I don't think it matters whichever one would like to stay, or if the board chooses to replace both, that is up to the board's
Who
discretion.
wants to go?
I'll be glad to stay on that committee.
All right, so Bill's gonna stay on the finance committee. All right, Sherry, you wanna stay on the calendar, right? Since
Yes,
you've already
we've
been on a meeting.
Yes.
I'm on council to councils. I've always been on council, so I'll just stay. College and career ready. Is anybody on that? Okay, so that's when we need somebody. District Wellness Committee. I actually think I'm on that. Greg Holland, am I on that?
Yes, you've always served on that one, Ashley.
Okay, I am. That's what I thought. I'll stay there. Okay. Strategic Planning Committee.
If nobody's on that, I'll volunteer for that one.
Okay. And early child, do what?
unless somebody else wants it.
No, you're good. Early Child Care Council. Is anybody on it? All right. So Bill's got 2. Brenda, you got 1. I've got 2 so far.
I've got
Sherry, you've
3.
got 1. What else you on?
I'm on, the Area Technology Center, ATC,
Oh,
the finance,
I didn't,
and strategic
Hold on.
planning.
okay.
Do you know how often we meet and at what time? That kind of helps, I think, you
I
know.
Yeah, because there's community, who's on community ed? There's nobody on that one either, is there? That one's usually in the middle of the day, I think. Area Technology and Health Status Committee with Clark County Health Department.
And actually, I hate to interrupt. Can we find out who is heading these committees now? Because like, I think I've only been to like the 2 ATC meetings, and we may not have had any last year, but I don't recall going to any last year.
Can we, huh? What'd you say?
Get a contact for who is in charge of each one of these committees.
Yeah, Miss Arlene should probably be able, you can send that out, can't you, Miss Arlene?
And how often they meet and what time, because I think that does, you know, it allows you, because I'm on Pi and we meet in the middle of the day, but it's at lunchtime, so I can take my lunch, but I can't do like a 2 o'clock or a 10 o'clock in the morning. And it's hard for me to commit myself
Right.
if I don't know.
What is your schedule like, Megan?
I can be pretty flexible. I would rather not have like evening meetings if that can be avoided.
I'm pretty sure community ed, when does community ed meet? Is it daytime?
Would it, let me ask you all this, see if we can do this easier way. Would it help you all if you just table this assignment tonight and let me and Arlene and some of us work on it and give you this list and tell you who's the committee, who's over it, when they meet, and how often they meet?
That's a fabulous idea.
Send that out, just email that out to all of you, and then you all can kind of decide when we come back into the next meeting, we can finalize it.
Yeah,
Is that
just
okay?
ask me at the meeting, that's fine.
Okay, all
I
right.
just located the document. The last time that those appointments was done was 2019, and I can tell you who was on what.
Yeah, because we just all stayed on the same thing.
Community Education Advisory was Gordon Peridot. Area Technology was William Talby. Health Status, all that Clark County Health Department was also Gordon. Scott Heisel was Partners in Education. Strategic Planning Committee was Gordon Peridot. Clark County Early Childhood Council was Scott Heisel. District Wellness was Ashley Ritchie. College and Career Ready Committee was William Talby. Budget and Finance was Sherry Richardson and William Talby. Council of Councils, Ashley Ritchie, and Calendar Committee, Sherry Richardson.
So Bill, you and Sherry, it looks like may have to come off the,
Well, the College and Career Ready Committee, I never got contacted by anybody on that.
okay.
This is the high school.
Okay.
All right.
I'll still put that together if they think that'll help you all. I'll do that.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Okay.
but I'll go on and leave you down as Partners in Ed, Brenda, and the ones that we know we're taking, I'll go ahead and leave those in and send those in to Miss Arlene, because we've already been going to meetings, so that way it won't get, okay. So we'll just table that one. So agenda items. Is there anything anybody wants to pull off?
I just have a question for Mr.
Alicia, are
Christie.
you still on here? Go ahead.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, Alicia.
Okay.
Have we changed the way that the, credit cards are being seen through here now? Did we change that?
As in, you should
Well,
be
like,
seeing. Go ahead.
it used to say what it was, like what it was for or whatever at one time. Now it just says in general thing. Like I can't see because my iPad died and I'm having to use my phone, so I can't really go back and look right now. But it was just something I had made a note to ask you about.
So you get copies of the Fifth Third credit card statements now, because that's the only credit cards that we use that in Walmart and Kroger. But
Uh-huh.
the Fifth Third are the only ones being provided now. Walmart and Kroger was never provided in prior years. But you've been getting those for over a year now in the current status that they're being provided.
Okay. It was just something because I've been getting questions on some of the way they've been written out on here, that they think it's changed. Like it used to say more of a detailed and now it's more kind of just straightforward. There's no details on it anymore.
So when we switched over to Fifth Third, we just started scanning copies of the actual statement and giving it to you. Whereas when we were with the PNC, my accounts payable clerk used to take the time to actually sit down and do an Excel spreadsheet and hand type everything out with lots of detail. And we asked if we could get away from that by just scanning the statement, and we were told yes.
Thank you. I just need to have an answer for that. Thank
Yep.
you.
Uh-huh.
Go ahead, Bill. Sorry.
No, that's okay. I was just going through your updates. Mr. Christie, I just had a quick question on the final punch list for the gymnasium. It says that you expect that to be done in the next 2 weeks, and for us to for approval, the BG4 closeout for that, those documents be sent in March. Are you confident that will be completed? I can't hear you. You're on mute.
I'm sorry. In my conversations with John Hagan, yes, I'm confident that it'll be done by the end of March. If anything should change, I'll let you all know, but that's our intention right now, is to have it closed out, that one closed out by the end of March. And we should be fairly close behind on the auxiliary, or I'm sorry, the baseball, softball, and field house should come hopefully shortly after that. The biggest holdup over there is some netting and some turf. They haven't been able to cut that turf because of the weather. And that's the only things that I'm aware of over there that's holding us up. And then we'll do a final walk to this, which is what we did this past week. Well, I mean, we go through and you get down to the details of the cracks in concrete and how much dirt, how deep the dirt is and stuff over everything. So I think we'll be through in March. If anything should change, I'll let you all know.
Okay. And then one other question, make a comment that, due to retirements and resignations, we're going to be looking to hire new teachers for next year. Do we have an idea on, how many, where they're going to be, where the needs going to be, mainly anything of that nature yet?
That will come from the meetings when we meet with the principals. Scarlett and I will have a very detailed list by every school of who's going to be coming back and who's not going to be coming back and who's retiring. We'll have a very firmed up list by the first of March, and we'll actually, by the 1st of May, and we'll probably do our pink slipping maybe somewhere just before that, but not until after we've met with every principal. And it's pretty much the same process. And from there, we start to advertise for what positions we know we're going to have and those things as soon as we finish that.
Okay. Thank you.
Thing is, when the full
You're fading in and out. Can't understand you.
Check. If not, then would anybody like to make a motion for items? No.
Ashley, you going in and out.
Hear me now.
You can try it again. I think our internet's, acting up. Give her a second.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Had to use my phone. I don't know what's going on. Okay. Would anybody like to make a motion for items 9 through 30?
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda items 9 through 30.
Motion by Ms. Considine,
I'll second it.
second by Mr. Tawby. Is everybody's cameras on? Because I cannot see it because I'm having to use my phone. So make sure they're on. All those in
Everybody's
favor
on.
say aye. Huh? Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Item number 31, authorize payment of salaries and accounts payable.
Make that motion.
Anybody want? Okay, motion by Mr. Tawby,
I'll second.
second by Ms. Richardson. All those in favor say aye or raise your hand. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Ms. Richardson.
I second.
Who was that? Is that?
Considine.
All right, there you go. Motion by Ms. Richardson, second by Ms. Considine. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. We are adjourned at 8:35 p.m. Well, I almost made it through a meeting without it shutting me off.
Just for y'all's information, it's gone out, we'll be virtual NTI tomorrow for everybody. And being able to work from home, we still got about 350 homes without power right now. And we're working, I've worked with the principals and they're going to be aware of that and working with kids or staff that may have technology issues tomorrow. So just so y'all know.
Good deal.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Fayette County also, while we were in the meeting, Fayette County also announced they're out for the rest of the week. They're going to be virtual the rest of the week. No in-person, nothing. Central office closed and everything for the rest of the week. So.
I think their central office is having a COVID spread, ain't they?
I don't know.